Creating success out of failure. Creating success out of failure.
I'm Jonathan Federa. I'm here to inspire you to hustle and grow your income while doing what you love. Just because you have problems doesn't mean you can't prosper. Just because you have tragedy doesn't mean you can't triumph. Actually, you should be taking advantage of that.
There's positivity in my pain. I took scarcity and turned it into strength. I always tell life, there's not much you can do to me where I won't make an obstacle an opportunity. We never lose, we only learn lessons. If you wanna change your perspective. If you don't know how to do that, we'll show you how right now. Cause it's about to go down. You are tuning in to creating success out of failure. Creating success creating success out of failure. Out of failure.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Creating Success Out of Failure. I'm here with my lovely co-host, Jessica. Jessica, how you doing today?
I am doing wonderful. How are you?
Great.
I'm so excited because today we have someone whom I really enjoy spending time with because he is a marketing savage, but he's also a teddy bear, and he's a great guy who's just always willing to help everyone around him. And I'm all about the energy, and I can't think of anyone else when I think of great energy because he's just got the best. But of course, like all of us, he's created his success out of some missteps and mistakes. And I'm really excited to introduce to you guys John Highley. Hi, John.
Hey, Jessica, how you doing today? And pleasure to meet you as well. We got a brief introduction with Jonathan here. Previous to jumping on here, I'm so happy and excited. And, I'm just so grateful that you guys had me on here today.
I'm so grateful to have you and to have everyone listen to your amazing story. But before we get into the story, let's tell everybody a little bit more about what you do.
I guess they call me the marketing savage. That is for pretty self-explanatory there. We own a company that we have some software where we build different websites. We actually do funnel building, all of that fun stuff. We create followings for people that we work with. So we like to say we are the builders of culture, and meaning that we build cult-like followings around the people that we work with. So that's kind of the structure that we do. And I actually I go as far to display exactly how every element of every company wants to build a culture around what it is that they do. They want their employees to fall into the culture, all the way down to all of us want a company that has a cult-like following. And one of the biggest and best ones that I actually recently had a talk on at one of my last speaking engagements was Harley Davidson. And we went so deep into the emotional levels that Harley Davidson puts out there for the world. And it's one of my favorite companies to study. So I guess just to make it very quick and very brief, that's what we do. We are the architects of designing a cult-like following around your company, whether that's internally with your employees. We create that message, framework that message, or whether that's externally with people that are actually clients and customers that are following you and they want to do business with you.
And who wouldn't need that? I mean, every company needs a culture. It's one of the most important things you can create inside and out, because you want your staff to be happy and, feel like they're a part of the actual company and part of a team. And then, of course, everyone's obsessed with getting any kind of following now on social media and otherwise. So anyone looking to grow their business absolutely must contact John, because he really is a genius at what he does. I know a ton of people have used him, and I've never heard one bad word about him. He's amazing.
I will say, John, usually I kind of vet, if I don't know someone on a personal level and they're coming on, I usually call around. There's always somebody that has something bad to say, always. You take it with a grain of salt sometimes, but if you continuously hear the same thing, hey, it's probably not a good fit. Man, I couldn't find anybody to have anything on. And then Jessica spoke very highly of you. So I spoke to Jessica prior to you coming on. I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm really excited for John to be on, because when everyone says the same thing,
Well, you know,
Well,
it's a
he
good
knows how to
thing.
build a reputation. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
definitely.
Well, you know,
Definitely.
I learned a long time in business that, you know, it's an exchange of value. And I think
Absolutely.
where people go wrong is when they kind of they don't match the value in the exchange. So technically, in exchange with business, if somebody gives you money, you're supposed to provide them with more value than that money can actually purchase them anywhere else, right? So it's a value exchange, and technically, that's the way money was intended to be. The only time that money is bad in any way, what's an inanimate object, so that's a whole different conversation, right? But the only time it can be used bad in any way is when more of it's taken and not enough is given in exchange. Money's actually designed to elevate people's life, and I live and operate by that principle. So when I do an exchange with people, I'm very clear and very concise, and a lot of times I will actually have to turn people down if they have some sort of
Uh-oh.
to
Okay.
not having anybody talk bad about me, or not anybody have anything bad to say about, you know, my business model or my company, is just because I will literally turn somebody down if I think that I can't bring value to that situation. And it's just the way that I operate in life. I'm actually, my next book that I'm writing is specifically about that value exchange and how it's mathematically impossible if you can value than what they give you in return in exchange for their money. It is mathematically impossible for you not to get wealthy, for you not to get rich. Um, it's just the way the world works. If people know that they're buying money at a discount, in that exchange, it's you people. I mean, how many times if I told you you gave me $1, I would give you $2 back. I mean, how many times would you do that? You would literally just do it over and over again, because in that exchange, I'm elevating your life each and every time. Well, truly, that's how service businesses of any kind should be operating.
Yep.
And if you, and what I've learned a long time ago, if you cannot operate with that type of integrity, then you shouldn't be doing whatever service it is that you're offering and that you're providing to the world, because technically you're deducting from the world, you're taking from the world rather than being a value add. So that's one of the things that I believe is the true key to wealth, is just adding value to the lives of the people around me.
That's amazing. I love that you use that example because I say that to my clients all the time. You know, because money always has a cost, right? When you're borrowing,
Yeah.
but it's more important to figure out what they're doing with the money and figuring out what that return is. And if that exceeds the cost and the new cash flow exceeds the payment, it's basically, all right, I'm giving you $1, and for every dollar I give you, you're able to amplify that to like $1.50 or $2. You know, they're going to keep writing that check, right? Because it's
Absolutely.
helping them and it's helping them grow. And with marketing, when you do,
Yep.
it's the same thing.
Yep.
Very similar.
And there's a lot
I
of
think
aspects that you got to take to convey that message, you know, whether that's the user experience. So there's a lot of mistakes people make, I believe, in business, is maybe you are given that value, but you're not communicating the value that you're giving. You're lacking a user experience, you know, a user experience. And, you know, so there's different components to that. But ideally, you gotta prove to people that investing in you is a good thing.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
such a good point. I think a lot of times we take what we do for granted in certain ways, and instead of really laying it out for people, because when I hire you, it's because I'm not, that's not my zone of genius. What you do isn't my zone of genius. So I'm not going to immediately know what you're worth to me. I need you to tell me how you're going to make my life easier and why this is going to be super valuable to me. And a lot of people in sales don't necessarily convey that. So I think that's an amazing point. And I want to touch on the fact that you mentioned your second book, but you just became a best-selling author like a month ago.
Yeah.
So tell us about that book. Give us the name, a synopsis, you know, of what that's about, so people can find it and buy it and, you know, get into your brain a little bit more.
Sure. Well, the book's name is Marketing Savage, and it took me absolutely way too much time to write. It took me way longer than what was anticipated. I spent a year writing the book and going back and forth with edits and things like that with my editor. The book is primarily about becoming the best version of yourself channeling what I believe that is the light that's inside of us, inside of our heart, inside of our mind, and inside of our soul, and actually delivering that to the world in a marketing message. I didn't want to simply write a book about marketing with like tips and tricks. I mean, you could hop on and go watch a Dan Kennedy video for that. And you could go to YouTube and get that kind of stuff. I wanted to talk about how to transform and find like what you were inside and be able to deliver that as a catalyst to the world. Because I believe that marketing is a transfer of energy. And when your energy is very, very strong and very powerful around whatever it is that you're delivering or you decided to give to the world, when your energy is very, very strong and concentrated around that, it becomes very efficient. It becomes very powerful, meaning that the marketing message that you put out into the world becomes very easy to do because this is something that you were meant to do. It's like stepping into who you are and then channeling that energy and delivering that to the world. Because I knew we didn't just need a bunch of marketers, right? Like we just didn't need a bunch of, I mean, look, I love Russell Brunson. He's been a mentor for a long time. He's channeling out enough marketers on that end, to fill the world 10, 20, 30 times, right? What I knew the world needed was people that I believe that could walk with their torch just shining, right? To light that torch up, that light that's inside of them. Because the one thing about when you light your torch up and you begin giving your light to the world, meaning you give the highest version of yourself to the world, you never know when somebody is sitting over there and they have their torch and their flame is just barely flickering, right? So they got a flame that's just barely flickering. And when you shine your light on the world and when you walk with that torch just lit up, right? And to me, that's a world that I wanted to live in the future, right? So that's what I believe the future of this world should become, is people tapping into the best version of themselves and delivering that to the world. So the book has a lot of tactical things as well when it comes to marketing, right? But ideally, it's about channeling your energy around that type of stuff.
It's beautiful advice, because I think that when you're not like going out to become a marketer, but you're just trying to market your own business, the best thing you can do is lead with the most authentic version of yourself. And once you find that message that is super authentic to who you are, something effortlessly happens where you just start attracting the right kind of people, the right kind of client, because of the energy that you're exuding. And it's not so much work anymore as just the natural ebb and flow of the energy you're putting out there into the marketplace.
John, I have a question for you. What are some of the most common mistakes you see small businesses make when they design or try to implement marketing?
I truly believe that a lot of small business owners feel like they're taking from the customer rather than putting the thought of increase in everything that they do.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is I run into a lot of small business owners that feel like whenever they're doing the exchange, right, that they're taking from people rather than giving something, right? So I truly believe that people need to put this energy of abundance in everything that they do, right? Meaning that you put the thought of increase. Like, I don't care if you're selling a stick of candy, a stick of gum to a child, you put the thought of increase as you're doing that transaction. There's fucking power behind that, man. And I know it's a little bit woo woo and stuff like that. And I'm a big fucking
Not to
tattoo
me.
guy, with a big beard and shit. And a lot of people don't expect to hear this type of stuff out of me. But putting that thought of increase in everything you do, man, I'm telling you, makes all the difference in the fucking world. It's a transfer of energy. Okay, so I can give you all the tips and tricks, but everybody knows that little place down the road that everybody fucking goes to, right? I can say fuck on this podcast.
All fucking day.
Oh, all right. So everybody knows that place down the road that everybody goes to. The guy never did any marketing at all. He just made a good burger with passion, right? And put his passion and his love and his thought of increase behind it. And the place has a line all the way out the door. Okay. There could be a burger joint across town just as good, but it just doesn't get the same traction. It's because of the energy behind the business. So people got to be passionate about what it is that they do, and they've got to convey that message to everybody that they come in contact with. At the bottom, the core of everything in marketing, the core of everything, everybody out there is looking for increase, and they're looking to avoid decrease. Okay. So they're looking for increase, whether that's increase in time, finances, love, whatever. We're all, as human beings, we're looking to grow, and we're seeking increase, and we're avoiding decrease, anything that will decrease. And whether that's status, like I said, any of these things, right? And if you can put the thought of increase in everything that you do, including yourself, like I genuinely believe, like I believe in my heart and my soul that just by association, when I associate with other people, that I increase and I add benefit to their life. It took me a long time to believe that about myself, because I wasn't naturally inclined to believe that I was that great of a person. It took a lot of thought and time to say that, you know what, if I associate myself with somebody, everything I touch turns to gold, and I'm going to turn whatever it is that I deliver. I'm going to, whether it's friendship, just by association. And I'm telling you something, if you guys practice this, you'll walk into a room and people will just gravitate to you. And you won't have to say anything. You won't have to speak a word, because people will subconsciously gravitate towards that increase.
100%. 100%.
I know that's a crazy response.
It's
Coming from
not.
asking a marketing question, you might expect for me to say, build a funnel or go out there and, start advertising on Facebook. Yeah. All of that stuff's great, but you got to have that power behind it first. People will buy the passion and the energy behind a business before they actually buy the concept or the offer or any of that kind of stuff.
So you mentioned though that you didn't always have this perspective about yourself. So I'm wondering, like, what happened? What was the point where you realized that you had this power that could help other people?
I think one of my the first time that I started moving towards self-improvement was literally like, where I grew up, man, you just didn't do things like that. I grew up in a lot of trouble. The cops kicked down my door early on, took me to jail for trafficking LSD at an early age. And, I was a salesman back then, but I was a street pharmacist. So I was just selling drugs, and that's how you made money where I grew up. I know it sounds weird, but like growing up with one of my best friends that saying that he's a crack dealer, and that was like normal. Like that was normal shit that, he's cooking some crack in the kitchen while I'm hanging out, just talking to him. And it just like, it didn't even dawn on people like us that was like bad or wrong or anything like that. Now you mentioned the word, my buddy's a crack dealer. Everybody gasp, oh my God, a crack dealer. You know what? I grew up with a friend he still has my Mike Tyson Punch Out game from Nintendo 1. And I tell him that whenever we go back home and I see him. And so, like I grew up in this environment where there was like a lot of negative shit, like a lot of negative thoughts. Like I had what they call like ants in your head, right? Where you got negative thoughts just firing, and they're your neurons firing over and over again. And it wasn't until I sat down, and I remember somebody gave me the book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I started reading that by Stephen Covey, that I had never heard any shit like that in my entire life. Like I had never heard any positive message, positive thinking. Like I didn't know there was any other way to think than how I grew up and where I grew up. Right. So, but I just got addicted to it. Like I heard that message and I just couldn't stop. So, since then I've probably read 3,000 books. And some of the books I got caught up on for like years. Like I listened to Think and Grow Rich, the CD set. I'm talking about the CD set in my 98 Ford Expedition. When I started my first business, I had the CDs, and I listened to the CDs for 2 years straight. It was either that or playing Bob Marley. It was one or the other. So I was either jamming out to some like Rasta man music, and I was getting into my Rasta vibe, right? And bringing out my Rastafarian self, which probably later on I figured out was my spiritual side coming out. Or I was listening to Think and Grow Rich. And down the line, I got into, started listening to Wallace Wattles, who wrote a book called The Science of Getting Rich. And I still listen to that book. There was a time probably just a few months ago, I was listening to it every day. And I think that was the book that really, it's like Think and Grow Rich, but it was written 30 years before that. And he really breaks down just the core principles. And then I started listening to Emerson, Ralph Waldo Emerson. And I started listening to some of the the people, you know, that he suggested in the book that were talking about how to self-actualize and all this kind of stuff, right? And then it finally came to me that like I had to take these negative thoughts that I was having and I had to fire back at them. So I ended up reading or watching a program by John Azaraf, who was actually on the movie The Secret. And he had this like kind of like this neuroscientist board that he would bring on, and they talked about neurons that fire together wire together. And
John,
man,
that's so weird. I don't mean to interrupt you. The whole
yeah,
time you're talking, I was going to say you should read The Answer.
the
John
answer
Assaraf.
I
Yeah.
have.
I know
I
you
have read
have.
that. It's been a
I
while.
know. I know.
Yeah, yeah.
You're
So
good,
so he,
man.
so yeah, so he started talking about this stuff. So I wrote down all my negative thoughts and I started firing positive ones back at him. And there's a certain way you do it. Like they're not really long format because your subconscious doesn't really read long format. You know, if something bad, if the word bad comes through your mind, you want to hit it back with good. And you know, it's like you got to hit it with the exact opposite. But within about 30 days, the same time that takes to establish like a habit in your life, your positive thoughts will actually overtake your negative thoughts, and then at some point only positive thoughts will begin firing through your mind. It's incredible. But I had to go through a transformation of really just figuring out what was firing through my mind, rewriting everything, and then firing back at it.
Awesome. And how has that impacted your life in terms of, let's say, just business? Obviously, it helps you mentally because you're
Sure.
getting rid of the negative thoughts. But how did that impact your business and
I believe
you know?
massively. No, I believe massively, because the truth of the matter is, at the end of the day, your energy is just all the thoughts that are firing through your head, right? So that's going to, not only is that going to change like your energy, I believe like your body makeup of your energy takes a while to catch up with that, right? So just because you start thinking negative thoughts today doesn't mean you're going to be walking with good energy tomorrow, because literally your cells are dying and being rejuvenated all the time. If you read a book by Bruce Lipton, it's called the Bruce Lipton the power of belief. I'm sorry, is it? I think it's the power, or thoughts are belief, the power of belief, by Bruce Lipton. And incredible book, but it actually breaks down scientifically how inside of your mind, when you form a belief or you form a thought, it actually has a way to go through chemicals and inject its way into your cells, a lot like nutrition. So our cells are always dying and being replenished. So there's an incubator period where literally when you're having positive thoughts and you're changing from negative thoughts, that you got a cellular change that happens in your body. And then I found out later that the actual more water that you drink during this process, because water is the conductor between the energy that literally this energy that's going directly into your cells, the more water you drink, the better conductor it makes. Actually, the faster it renews this process, number one. The second thing, a lot of people, when they make these big changes in their life, they feel like shit all of a sudden, right? I actually found out later through all of this research, and I've got like energy coaches and stuff like that. One of them, his name's Mike Kimsky, incredible guy. He wrote a book called Power Life Principles. And he specifically talks about this, like we will mourn the death of an old self. Like when we become a new person, like it feels all renewing and shit like that. And then all of a sudden, like we will actually mourn the death of this person that we once was. And that shit actually happens during the cellular change of you becoming this new version of yourself. It's incredible shit. It probably sounds crazy to a lot of people that might be listening to this, but I'm just telling you guys, this is like concrete fact, like scientific shit.
You're speaking my language personally. I mean, I've gone through that myself. And I think most of us have. I'm sure Jonathan has too, because when you change and you're developing constantly, you look back, and even 6 months ago, I'm not the same person that I was. I have new habits and new things that have happened. So I think I believe in that. You're definitely speaking my language.
Yeah. So yeah, so ideally, yeah, that's something that that like I keep coaches in my life as well, like mentors in my life, and like all kinds of areas. Like, with fitness, I actually had a mentor, professional bodybuilder, Blair Moan. He was also WWE wrestler, Eddie Bravo, which is kind of crazy, kind of a funny story. I got to hear about all the old stories with Andre the Giant and, and Hulk Hogan and all this kind of stuff. But then, I also got people like Mike Kimsky, who's like an energy coach, right? And I got people like Ryan Stewman, who just like, I don't even know what I could call Ryan, just a fucking amazing all around person that's always with the right type of people is a lot like, you were talking about earlier there, Jessica, is that like, as a seed, you really can't grow on concrete, you've got to be planted into the ground and you got to be planted in fertile ground. And I would say our association, the people that we surround ourselves, it's got to be that fertile ground.
Well, it
That
all
we,
comes
that we
back to the
plant
energy,
ourselves.
because you're going to be absorbing whatever energy you're around. So if you've kind of leveled up to a playing field where the people are high energy and successful and kind of feeding your soul and your mind, where are you going to go? Up, of course, because you're developing and you're, getting stronger mentally, physically, etc. That's I think that's so powerful personally.
People underestimate that. If you surround yourself with the right people, you're going to learn at a much quicker, faster rate, and you're going to push yourself a lot harder.
You just
You
feel
are.
more energized. I feel like it does come back to me personally for energy. Like when I'm around in a room full of people who are succeeding, I just feel that positivity and happiness. And like people are very connected to who they authentically are. And that's just emanating in the room. And then you're kind of vibing off that instead of these people who are like soul sucking news watchers that they're just kind of in the chaos. You don't want to be around that because then you get sucked into that.
That's true. That's true. And I think that's also been something that's made me successful is, I was a lot like how most people are, early on. I mean, I was inclined to be jealous. I was inclined to have all these feelings. And then one day I realized I'm like, dude, this like being jealous over somebody's success is like eating poison and hoping the other person dies. Like you're the fucking only person that ends up suffering as a result of this. Right. And what I actually learned early on, I was like, you know what? Like, I don't care if it was my worst enemy at the time. I would start verbalizing and talking success over their life. I would start speaking success over them because the power of words is just incredible. And if you start speaking these things into the world, your thoughts will soon follow. And the beautiful thing is when you become an individual who immediately, like no delay, like somebody walks up to you and they go, "Oh man, I just bought this new Lamborghini. It's so dope." And you're like as excited or even more excited than they are, like legitimately excited for them. And you want to know everything about it. Like you bring something empowering to that person's life, right? Because like half the people they walk up to are just like weird now, and they're giving them bad energy, and they leave the conversation like feeling a little bit like shit, right? And this is exactly why like I pay attention to like years ago when I'd have a conversation with somebody, like a business conversation, I would leave and I would start replaying the conversation in my head, and I would think about what was said, what I said. I would try to analyze the conversation, things like that, right? Sometimes overanalyze it negatively or whatever, right? And now I only think about how I felt. Like I literally like I think about how I felt. I mean, I don't even care if I walk into a car dealership and I look at a car and I have an interaction with the staff there. I leave there thinking, do I feel like this is the way place I want to buy a car? Because if it's not, then I don't.
I'm
Do I
the same.
feel like this is the type of person I want to do business with? Because if I don't, then I just don't. I mean, I think when you start living life like that, you tap into like this inner guidance that's inside of us that's trying to always move us towards the right direction. And sometimes the right direction might look fucking horrible. You know what I mean? Like it might look horrible. I mean, I just got finished with a lawsuit that at the time it seemed horrible. But it was the right direction. Like shit is hitting me now. Everything worked out amazingly. Like none of the bad shit that I thought was going to happen happened. And all of it just unfolded in a way that was complementary to like, I look back and like it couldn't happen any other way. And it worked out perfect.
I think that's a great point and something I learned later in life. Because as a lawyer, I was always like, over analyzing everything. And then I would stop and not listen to my gut instinct. And when
Yeah.
I transitioned to the business world, that is the only thing I listen to now. I don't give a shit about the evidence anymore. The evidence is coming from my soul. I feel it in my body when I meet someone, when I'm around someone. Is this good or bad? I don't need to know if I'm right or wrong. I am right for me because my energy is telling me time out. Something doesn't feel all right here. And every time in my life, when I look back, anytime I had not listened to that, things went south fast. And every time I listened, even if it didn't quite make a whole bunch of sense yet in the moment, it worked out effortlessly because that was the path that I was supposed to take. That was where my gut was leading me. So I feel that deeply. And I agree with you 100%.
I always say that my gut and my heart's got to be going in the same direction. Because there's the element of that too, where I've let my heart take me in a direction where my gut wanted me to go in the other direction, and my heart took me into a horrible place. Where I wanted to I wanted to like essentially give too much in a certain situation where I shouldn't have, because by me giving in that situation, it didn't help the situation, right? I should have done the exact opposite. And a lot of times, like you've got to just try to listen to both and try to make sure, like if your heart wants to do something but your gut is going, oh, it's not a good idea, but if your gut's wanting to do something, your heart just not into it, your heart's not like in sync with it, then it's probably not a good idea either. I believe the two of them, you got to feel the two of them in sync, and when you feel the two of them sync up, then you can't lose.
Yeah, and I think it's funny because a lot of times people associate the heart part with like an over emotional reaction in business, and that's not it at all. I think it's more just becoming aware of what's happening inside of you because you know you best. And if you trust yourself and you develop this awareness where you can understand those feelings and interpret them properly, it's almost like you just don't speak that language yet. Like you got to learn the language of yourself,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
you'll be able to interpret the signs in the correct way and follow the map.
Yep.
But it takes a lot of people some mistakes and missteps maybe before
Well,
they
and
learn
and
that
I and
lesson.
I think for a lot of people who might not even understand what we're talking about out there, one of the things a lot of people realize that there's different phases in our life, and we all get stuck in certain phase. Hopefully, you never get stuck in a certain phase, but there's a phase in our life where we care more about what other people think and feel than what we actually feel ourselves, and that's like an acceptance phase in life, right? So you get to the point where all your basic needs are covered, right? You've got safety, you've got security, and the next thing you know, you get to the point where everything you're doing is for this external validation, right? Where and that's when you cannot feel your heart, you cannot feel your gut. You actually lose the ability to feel these type of senses because all you're really worried about is external validation. That, let me tell you something, will never quench the thirst that you're looking for, which is unconditional love. Usually it's
100%.
unconditional love, right? The only thing that will actually fix that is stepping to the next phase in life, which is self actualization, where you are working on you at such an intense level that you are working on yourself to deliver yourself to the world. And the crazy thing is that you never really get the acceptance that you want until you self actualize,
Yeah,
because
because
that's
if love is coming from within yourself, that's the love that you're really missing, I think.
that's
If
right.
you
Because
hate
when
yourself,
you can radiate it out. It radiates out rather than
you
trying
attract.
to absorb it from everywhere. You're radiating it from the in out. And what do people want? People want that one thing, right? And if people see you living that life of self actualization and you're radiating that love out inside of your heart, people want to get closer to you because they want to know how you do it. I mean, it's what everybody desires. And that's why I believe that marketing is a transfer of energy, because if you haven't really self-actualized yet, then you can't deliver that part of yourself to the world. I mean, I'm big on money and stuff like that. Like, look, I understand that money is like it amplifies my message. I believe my message is worthy of having that, this thing amplified, right? But the truth of the matter is like money can destroy people as well. It's an extension of you. Look, if you're into cocaine and hookers, you can do a fuck ton of cocaine and hookers with a bunch of money, right? It might not be the best thing for you to have in the shit. I just don't know how else to explain it other than that, doing something really bad with it, right? So there's that aspect where, you know, I want to see people like get to like the root of who they are and deliver that to the world, because that's what the world needs. We don't need a carbon copy of the Marketing Savage. We don't need a carbon copy of Jessica. We don't need a carbon copy of Jonathan. What we need is a bunch of people like get in touch with who they are and actually giving that gift to each and every one of us, because each and every person has a deep-seated gift inside of their hearts and their minds. And I believe that moving towards that vision in my world, that's our world going to somewhere, going to the good, right? It's going to the good. See, a lot of people think the world is going to the bad. It's going to the devil. It's going to the bad. It's going to this and that, right? Like, I don't believe that. I believe it's going to the good. I believe our world is has always been God's, and will be taken back by God himself. Whether that's some people call God the universe, right? Whether they call it the universe, whether they call it, yeah, there you go. I can have conversation with people like they'll talk about the universe just like I'll say the word God, and I can talk about that. And I got friends that are Muslim that who are actually, you know, I don't know how I'll say it, but like some of the best people that I know, some of the most trustworthy, best people that I know. That I love to death, and they got their own version, their own thing. It's not ever for me to judge or, you know, to articulate or anything like that. Shit, if people were to judge me, they would think I was like horrible at whatever religion you call mine, right? But it's my own, you know. So that's.
I agree. I think you totally brought us full circle back to the point of the transfer of energy and marketing. I love that message so much. I am so thrilled that you're here, you know, telling us your story and sharing this with us. And I want you to tell everybody how they can find you and follow you and buy your book and all that great stuff.
Well, it's pretty simple. One of the best places to find me is over on the Facebook group, Marketing Savage. You can join that Facebook group for free. Just put your information, actually put in there that you found me on this podcast would be awesome. So I know where you're coming from. And then you can also check out my book on Amazon.com, which is Marketing Savage. And then you can get in contact with me on marketingsavage.com.
Awesome. Thank you.
Pretty easy. Everything's Marketing Savage.
That is easy. I love the branding, on point right there. Yep. Thank you so much for sharing all of this with us today. And guys, thank you for tuning in. If you got something out of this podcast, which I know you did because it was lit, then please share it with your audience. Make sure you like us, make sure you comment, make sure you send us a follow, all that great stuff. We appreciate you, and we will see you next time.
Creating success out of failure. Creating success out of failure.
Thanks for tuning in to Creating Success Out of Failure. Please share this with someone that needs to hear it, post it on social media, and leave us a 5-star review. I'll catch you on the next one.
Success out of failure.